All right, asshole, it's your funeral.
Grandpa, let's wait! Grandpa!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Scary Stories by the Campfire. We are your hosts this evening, the counselors of this nice little picnic that we have. Jason
And Jeremy.
and Jeremy. What do I see out there in the distance? What is that? Is that a lonely little shed? Is that what I see out there? Is that the shed?
Yes.
What do you think is in that? What do you think is in that shed, Jeremy?
Yes.
Tools, a lawnmower, a freaking vampire.
Yes, tonight our campfire is smack dab next to a shed.
A shed. Oh man! Oh man! Oh man! So yes, if you haven't got the joke yet, we're talking about the shed tonight, and I'm gonna tell you something. I like this movie.
I liked it more than I thought I would.
I remember
Definitely a lot more than I thought I would.
I think, okay, this may have been, okay, it's really hard to remember. I was going to say this was the first movie I watched on Shudder, which it's not. Dog Soldiers was the first. And I was like, oh, maybe it was the second one. No, I think Mayhem was the second one. This was probably one of the top five one of the first 5 movies I watched on there, because there was some sort of big like showing for it. It was like every time you went on there, it was like, watch the shed, and whenever you went to like search movies, it was like the first thing that always kept popping up, the shed. And I'm like, okay, you know what, it's been in my face enough, let me sit down and watch it. And I watched it, and I was like, wow, that was an interesting movie. Wow. And for the love of everything that is, horror in this world, I could have sworn it was like a Shudder exclusive, like The Color Out of Space, where it was like made strictly for Shudder. So when we were doing Monday movie night, Jeremy here was running a little behind, so I had to host. And Jeremy hosts all the time. He knows how to set this thing up real good. He knows where to find the movies. I'm trying to set this thing up like 5 minutes before him. Like, well, it's simple. It's on Shudder. Let me just log into Shudder. They took it off of Shudder. I was like, how do you take a Shudder exclusive movie off of Shudder? And well, come to find out, it's not actually Shudder exclusive. So I had to rent the movie. But watching it the second time, yeah, it's like what I remember. It's kind of a campy kind of. I thought originally when I watched it, I had chuckles. I was laughing at it a little bit, and I thought it was kind of like a dark comedy, kind of like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. But actually, when you look at it on IMDb, it's classified as a horror drama.
There wasn't much drama to it.
I think the idea of like the bullying and the stuff like that was part of the drama, but it just had a lot of campiness to it that it felt more like a comedy to me. Whether or not they intended it to be, I can't say for sure, but yeah, it felt like a slight comedy in there.
Well, I got the comedy feel from it. Like I said, I liked the movie. I thought I missed the first like 10 minutes of it when we first watched, so I went back and rewatched the beginning of it yesterday. But yeah, like I thought overall it wasn't like this monumental like new movie of like something new, but what it was going for, I think it succeeded in overall.
Yeah, I like the idea that um it's for anyone who doesn't know, it's a vampire movie. It's about a vampire, and pretty much in the beginning of the movie, you have dun dun dun, dun Frank Whaley. That's
Yeah,
why
that's
I
why you chose
specifically
this
picked.
movie.
Yeah, look at that. I got a Frank Whaley trilogy here, except he wasn't in the second vacancy. Thank God, because actually that would have probably made the movie better, but whatever. Um, but he ends up
Not by
getting
much.
bitten by yeah, he ends up getting bit by a vampire in the beginning of this movie, and then the vampire steps out into the sunlight and turns to dust, which is really weird because you would think vampires are a bit more intelligent.
Probably,
These
apparently not.
these these guys were kind of idiots. These were idiot vampires because they were out during the sun time, and I don't know why, but they were out, and one of them bit Frank's character. I don't even remember what his name was. Bane, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And he's kind of out in the middle of this wooded area next to a field. And he covers himself up and he runs to the nearest shelter he can find, which is this shed. And then he proceeds to stay in this shed because he turns into a vampire and he kills quite a few people, and then mayhem ensues. But all the while, there's some sort of teen angst drama thing going on
Ah,
in the
yes,
movie.
with Marble.
Marble and Dahmer and Stan and Roxy.
Stan the farmer man.
Yeah, I guess Stan's parents are dead. I mean, you kind of get the idea of his mom probably dying from some sort of sickness, and his dad ended up committing suicide. I presume just from the dream sequence that he had at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then he's living with his abusive, very hostile grandfather, and
His
I
grandpa was
guess
funny. Not even gonna lie.
his
Ellis.
oh, was that his
Yeah, his name was
grandfather's name?
Ellis. He's played by Timothy Bottoms.
All I know is that Stan kept calling him grandfather, especially when he went out into the shed and got killed. He's like, grandfather,
Grandpa.
grandfather. No, not even grandpa, grandfather. I think is what he was calling him, grandfather. Maybe it was grandpa. I don't remember, but um. But yeah, I mean, Stan apparently had some sort of trouble growing up, and that you had two cops apparently in this entire town,
Oh yeah,
and
Sheriff Dorney and Deputy Heiser. And poor Stan
yeah,
runs his bike into their car, and man, Deputy
oh,
Heiser just goes off.
he barely hits his vehicle. First of all, it's just a bike tire, just kind of a simple bump, and he gets out and threatens him that if his grandpa ever died, he's going to jail
No, when he
because
turns 18.
well, when he turns 18, yeah, but that's only if he messed up again. There wouldn't be any more juvie time.
Yeah.
But he said if his grandpa died, he'd get put back into the system and probably put away for good, or whatever. And he was a very hostile cop. But you only got to see him for like 5 minutes in that scene, and that was it. He was gone from the movie, just gone, disappears. And so when his grandpa gets killed by the vampire in the shed, he doesn't tell anyone. He's like, I ain't saying nothing.
Nope. He goes in. He has one of his grandpa's off-limit beers out of the fridge. Says don't touch. He pulls that beer right on out, pops it open, starts chugging.
Yeah.
I wasn't, and this is just a me thing maybe, I was not a fan with the style of friendship, quote unquote, thing that they had going between Stan and Dahmer. Like, I felt like you never even got a friendship out of them to connect with for there to be that much hostility, to even care about the hostility between the two of them.
Yeah, I think the idea there, and I I get where you're coming from because it didn't seem like, for the most part, these characters were like the most well developed characters.
But they just didn't
They
even
were,
seem like the best friends that they kept saying that they were.
yeah. I mean, there was a couple scenes where they were hanging out, but that was about it. I think growing up, they were like best friends, and they Stan, Dahmer, and Roxy would all hang out and sit on an old couch out in a field and drink beer and stuff like that.
Warm
And
beer.
yeah, and Roxy didn't do that anymore because she's hanging out with the cool kids. She was cool now, so she was hanging out away from them. And I guess I guess Dahmer was bitter about that, because Stan still had feelings for her, and Stan, I guess, wanted to move on. And no, that is true. They were no friends. Friends, especially best friends, don't point guns on each other. What Raven
Friends
is
don't lie.
friends don't lie and they don't point guns. Um, what Raven's referencing is later on in the movie, Dahmer finds out about the monster in the shed, and what he wants to do is feed the bullies to the monster in the shed. And of course, our hero Stan is against it. He's just like, we got to try to kill the thing. And Dahmer's like, no, 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 no. We have this weapon essentially, and we're gonna use it. And he does get Marble in there, and Marble gets eaten. But here's the weird thing about it. And there was a lot of hostility between like all of them. When Dahmer came in and he was pointing a gun and he waved it and at Stan, you know, it just seemed like the character arc. Here's the thing. Like I said before, I don't think the characters were that well developed, so the situation didn't feel as strong because they use the words best friend, best friend, best friend, but I think total wise they didn't spend that much time together on screen. There was like the segment at the school, the segment at the on the couch in the field, and then there was the one where Stan and Roxy are talking together, and Dahmer walks up on him, kind of ruins the moment,
Yeah, that was
and
about
then
it.
and then he's waving a gun in their face. So
Yep.
there's not a whole lot of, if the characters were a bit more well developed, it could have been a nicer transition maybe. But the other thing I don't get was that when Marble fed, or when Dahmer fed Marble to the vampire, Stan tried to stop him, and Dahmer hit him in the head with the gun, knocked him out. And then Roxy showed up, found him on the ground, and when they both looked, the shed door was open. And when Stan went in there, Dahmer was now a vampire. There's a part of like the story that you're missing there. Like, what is the next step? Dahmer's waving a gun, going, "I'm gonna feed the bullies to the vampire or the monster, or whatever," and then all of a sudden he is the monster.
Well, that begs the question because when, how, like, here's a question. So, how is it that when you, like, everybody that went in the shed got eaten and killed, but how is it that when Dahmer walks in there, is he, like, able to convince Bane that he wants to be a vampire?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. There's like, it feels like there's a whole scene that's cut out. Like, there should have been a scene where Stan gets knocked out and Dahmer convinces Bane, be like, "Hey, I'm the guy who's giving you what you want. Make me powerful like you. Give me something."
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen like that. It's just blackout, and then all of a sudden he's the vampire, and then he gets killed like relatively quickly.
Yeah.
He attacks Stan. Stan stabs him in the chest with the stake or the spike or whatever, and the broken broom handle, and burns a portion of his arm. And then he kind of dies. And then they go outside, and then he springs back outside, and then pretty much just dies there. And
Very anticlimactic.
yeah, it was like a very kind of a letdown kind of. If these characters, and it goes back to them spending screen time, you can say they're best friends, but if you don't show that they're best friends, you have to give us a connection. You have to give us a connection that we can work with, because if you don't, stuff like these turning points, these paramount emotional dramatic moments don't land. They just what did Bruce Wayne say in the Batman movie? It just raises too many questions. So it just kind of goes, eh? You know, I'm not saying that the movie is great. I'm saying it does have some issues, but I still enjoy this movie because of the idea.
Yeah.
I think the acting is well done. I don't think it gets like real, there is some campy moments, but it's not like it's overly campy. It's not like it's bad acting or anything like that. I just
Not like some of the Friday the 13th we've seen.
yeah. But there are segments of this movie that make me just scratch my head and go, really? Because I think I watched it the first time. When I watched it the first time, it was just me watching it, and I watched it, and I got to that same scene. I'm going, wait, what? How?
Well, I mean, the same thing happened, later when they were going into the house, and, I called them, what'd I call them? I called them Particle Board and something else. The two friends of Marble.
Yeah.
Granite and Particle Board.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think the one guy with the afro was Pitt.
Yeah.
And the other guy was just dead meat. He was cannon fodder. That's all he was.
So, but Pitt, or the cannon fodder gets turned and not eaten, and then he turns Pitt. So it's not. I just, when does it turn from turning them into vampires to just eating them? I just don't know where the change is.
I think it might be, in that sense, it might be the idea of Bane at that point was, he could have been angry, he could have been frustrated, he could have been just hungry. So people who ended up in the shed, he just ate and killed because he needed sustenance, I suppose. Like I said, missing scene with Dahmer, there could have been some sort of thing that gone on that he talked about. But I think the thing with the two extra bullies was that he was actually maybe trying to raise an army, kinda. Maybe he knew he was trying to infiltrate
Possibly.
this house. He was trying to infiltrate this house, and it's really hard, like I said, it's really hard to see these things as vampires because they don't really ever talk. They just kind of and they're more, feral in a sense. So in a way, it's kind of hard to think of them actually planning things. But
Yeah,
Bane
absolutely.
Bane knew he had to assault the house. So he's like, "Hey, I'll snatch this kid up and turn him real quick, and then he'll turn the other guy or whatever, and we'll get him from the inside." But
Now, my favorite scene was when he threw that dagger,
oh my god,
smacked her right in the shoulder, just bam. And I was like, and then she comes and swings that axe and cleanly chops his head off. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you'd have the muscle strength in that shoulder to do that. I don't think so.
yeah, that was also a weird scene that would have been better if it went a different way. But the scene Jeremy's referencing it's like the final showdown, and Bane is about to take a chomp out of Roxy, And Stan, who could have just thrown the knife and hit Bane in the back or something, but really he had to shout out some one line, "Hey Bane," blah blah blah, and then he throws the knife, and Bane sidesteps real quick, and the dagger hits Roxy. And this is the part where the audience is supposed to go, but essentially that didn't happen because she was just okay. She took the shot. She was like, "Oh," and that's the moment where you're supposed to go, "Oh my God, he."
No, she
just
took
killed
it
Roxy."
like a champ.
Yeah, she kind of was like, and then Bane attacked Stan, and then she just picks up an axe, dagger still in shoulder, mind you. She picks up an axe and just lops his head off, and then what? They just kind of patch it up with a bandana, just kind of just tie it around, and she was fine. No stitches, no trip to the hospital, because I'm telling you, this thing was dagger and it went halfway in.
I was
That
about to
thing
say,
could've been-
it was probably a good, like, this long, and, like, this much of it was in her shoulder.
you got a serious like 4 or 5 inches in, and yeah, she was okay. She was fine. She had no muscle problems. It didn't hit anything serious. Probably just bounced off her clavicle and oh God. I mean, like I said, this movie does have some really silly moments, but it's the idea,
Like I said,
Any other-
the overall idea of the movie was good. I liked it. It was a very simple concept, that they executed well on, but there were just a lot of little details I think they should have addressed during like edits and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't follow. I mean, they like to call it a vampire, but it doesn't always follow the same rules as a vampire.
Not at all.
The sunlight thing is a thing. It pretty much instantly kills them.
I suggested
said-
taking the roof off the freaking shed
Yeah, he could have done that.
and killed him
Except he drilled-
instantly.
Maybe that's why he was so angry, because he drilled holes into it and he couldn't really maneuver as well. But then again, he could just, cover himself up more. And
Well, you brought up a really good point, and you can't really tell from the picture in the back, but I remember you bringing it up during the movie.
let me tell you.
So-
picture.
This shed, he minded, is not very big. You got this, like, maybe 6 foot wide front, but it's only probably about 10 feet back. Like, it's not a big shed. But yet, everybody that walked in there was, what's in here? Looking around. And you brought up a point. Where was he hiding in this shed?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of places to hide in there. I mean, he could have hid behind, like, in the corner where the door was. They open up the door, but the door swings out. It doesn't go in, it swings out. So it's not like he would be behind it when the door opened, and he would just be behind the door as it opened, like in a corner. So you couldn't really hide there. Vampires usually can hang on the roof.
Well, we've established that these aren't normal vampires, so I highly doubt he's hanging upside down like a bat.
I mean, it is possible that he could be hanging on the roof, but some of those camera shots, you can see the roof clearly. And let me take a look at this picture one more time, because it's not a very tall shed.
It's really not.
It's not that tall. So if he's hanging on the shed, you open the door and just go, "Hey, buddy, what you doing up there?" Maybe he was ducking up on. Now, the only thing I can think of is that most of the time you didn't see like the back of the shed. So maybe if he like cloaked up underneath his like nasty robe or whatever, and he was like tucked in a corner, maybe it was kind of harder to notice him, because maybe there could have been some junk or stuff in the corner and he's just kind of blending in. But
Ravenfire, I think you're giving this movie too much credit.
Yeah. Also, vampires aren't allowed inside a house unless you invite them in, and he was never invited inside the house, and he managed to make it into at least the attic. So, um,
Yes.
yeah, probably not the same vampires.
But
These are probably like, I mean, Jeremy, have you ever seen that? What's that vampire movie in Alaska?
30 Days a Night.
Yeah. What did those vampires have any sort of
No,
um
I think
traditional vampire
I think the sunlight was the only thing. I haven't seen that movie in years.
I
But
haven't watched it at all.
the premise of the movie is they come out when Alaska goes through their month-long night cycle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think sunlight was the biggie for them.
Yeah, I was just curious because
I haven't seen it, like I said, and I haven't seen it since it came out.
I think it's because, when people are talking about vampires, there's always like different types of vampires people think about. You got like the Count Dracula ones where they're like suave and debonair, and they have like
I
they're
want
dressed
to
up and
suck your blood.
blah blah blah. They're very refined, and you could be talking to them and not realize that they're a vampire. And then you have the ones that are like,
I love the OG Dracula movies.
or you got the ones like what did you say, 30 Days of Night or whatever,
Yep.
where they're like very feral. They're very animalistic vampires. Like I said, I don't know vampires. Maybe I'll do some diving into vampire, lore and whatnot. Maybe it's kind of like what was that game? They had a game about vampires you could play as a vampire.
Vampire?
And was it called Vampire?
There is a vampire
I
game
thought it was
called
I thought it was
Vampire. Except
and you
it's
could pick like
spelled with a
which
Y.
no, I don't think it's that one. I think it's like what?
Okay, now
Oh
we're
no, I think it's called the Masquerade, where you can pick your house vampire that you want, and one of them is actually like a Nosferatu type.
okay.
One of them's like okay, we're diving too much. This is a vampire movie, and Jeremy, we can dive into vampires if we want to. Okay.
No, that's not what I'm doing this to. I'm reading Ravenfire's comment.
Oh.
Okay, so hold on. She says, the invitation dies with the owner of the deed to the house. So once the owner dies, the deed becomes invalid and thus becomes an empty shell. And there's nothing binding the house, so that's why the vampire can shank up in abandoned places, because there are no people owning these pieces. Okay, so let me get this straight, just so I am abundantly clear on this, because if I go to a bank and sign a deed to a house, that means a vampire can't come into it. But as soon as I lose said deed to said house, vampires have full access to it. But what if I go sign the deed to another house? What if I have like 4 houses with my name on the deed? Does that mean vampires can't come into any of the 4, even if I'm not home? Because that piece of paper is magical?
No, maybe it's a vampire sign of respect. Maybe it's just vampires are like, look, we're not burglars. We're not gonna just break into your house. Please invite us in so we can murder you.
I just want to make sure I have clarification on this.
Just so everyone knows, from now on, Ravenfire is our new vampire expert. They have to ask you permission. It's about the binding, not the paper.
Okay, so I don't have to be on the deed. I could just live in the house.
You can't live in the house. You have to own the house. You have to be binded to it through a contract, Jeremy. That's how it works. Don't you understand?
So if I'm a guest in the house, I can't, and it doesn't matter?
What do you mean a guest in the house?
So if, like, you own the house and I'm a guest over there, does that mean the vampire has to have your permission and not mine?
Yes.
So if you're not home,
then he can't get in.
I can't give him permission to come in?
Vampire lore is confusing. It changes when it wants to.
I wonder if werewolf lore is this confusing.
It could be.
I guess we'll get into that when we start doing Wolfman and werewolf movies.
Oh my god! I was reading the other day about a whole list of like ways to turn into a werewolf. And you think of the typical thing, scratch, bite, that kind of stuff, but it just goes down. Eating a baby turns you into a werewolf. Yeah, I read that somewhere. It's like if you eat a baby, you get to become a werewolf.
Well, I mean, cannibalism will technically turn you into a Wendigo.
Yeah, but that's not a no. It's got to be a baby. Or maybe they say it was a fetus. Weird stuff, I know, but it's like there's a fine line. You want to be a Wendigo? Wait for it to mature a little bit, okay?
It's got to go through
otherwise-
puberty first.
Yeah. But yeah. So just fun stuff. You have to. Okay, Ravenfire's rebuttaling here, or at least coming in. You have to own the house, and Jason lives with you. You have to give permission. It's the owner, and if the owner, you, dies, yeah, well then I'm vampire chow at that point because I don't own the house.
Well, what if I
Leave the house in my name when you die. You have it in a will. Does that work? So if Jeremy puts it in a will, it says Jason gets the house, and then Jeremy dies, does that automatically make it, or does someone have to read out and go, hey, whoosh, it says here, wait, yes to what?
What
yes
if
to...
what if I give Jason permission to let the vampire in? Will he still have permission, or do I have to be the one? Does it have to specifically come from me?
Yeah, so if Jeremy says, hey, I'm going out to Chick-fil-A to go get food because Jeremy loves Chick-fil-A. Oh, Jeremy, never mind. You have to be the one, Jeremy. Sorry.
So I can't.
So I can't invite the vampire in. I can't be like, well, no, Jeremy said you can come in. Where is this conversation going? I remember us talking about a shed. Does anyone remember the shed?
Oh my
I guess
god.
there's not a legal binding contract to a shed, so the vampire can get in there. The owner of the deed. Okay. So Jeremy.
What about an apartment? There
I
is no
guess-
deed for an apartment. I
No,
don't own the apartment. So
Yeah,
do I have
what
to?
a rent?
what-
Like a rental property, does the landowner have to? Does the landlord have to say yes to the vampire coming in? We're never gonna be able to have vampires over. This is really sad. Damn, finding out that vampires are not welcome anywhere unless it's specifically the owner of that house.
Yeah. So, Raven Fire. I need the answer to this too. Rental properties, especially like apartments. Does that mean if a vampire comes to my apartment right now, the leasing office has to give him permission to come in?
Oh my god.
I've come to suck your blood. Hold on. Let me get hold of my leasing agent. I got to see if I can give you
Okay.
permission to come in.
I don't actually own this place. I'm renting it right now.
Let me call my landlord.
Well, can you make it before sunup?
I don't know. He's probably asleep.
Yeah.
Come back
Okay.
tomorrow. I'll have an answer for you.
We just ran way off track here. I mean, not technically because it's still vampire related stuff, but I think we just really. This is what scary stories by the campfires. Now we have a movie theme, and this is where it gets okay. Ravenfire just responded with, "This is where it gets sticky." The owner of the apartments and possibly the one who is on the lease, maybe that I don't know. Wow, we stumped her. We stumped our vampire expert.
Yes! Success!
If anyone knows any vampires out there, we want to try this out. Just letting you know.
Oh my god.
That's why I am more of a. Well, I mean, I would say I'm kind of more of a werewolf kind of guy over vampires, but.
For-
you know. I don't
For me,
know.
for when it comes to vampires, it depends on the movie. Like I like the Draculas, the underworlds, the suave, you know those.
like Blade,
Yeah, Blade.
where they know that where the vampires,
supernatural stuff like that.
the vampires are like people, just vampiric instead of being like
30 Days of Night, the
The more-
Shed, the more feral ones, like you said.
feral ones.
Ha ha. She concedes, Jason. Ha ha.
It all depends on the vampires and their rules, because not all the same, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes to the same terms as like werewolves. Like, what are the rules on werewolves? Because I think originally in ancient folklore with werewolves, silver didn't have anything to do with it. That was like a more modern thing that came out. But we could talk about that when we get to our werewolves. And then we get to talk. Then we get to talk about swamp creatures when we get to Creature the Black Lagoon.
What's like every time I think of werewolves, like on how to kill a werewolf, one scene comes to mind all the time. And it's not even from a horror movie. That's the sad part. It's from The Sandlot.
What? Yeah, I mean technically, but they were still using the scene from.
Yeah, they used the scene from The Wolfman where she's like, "How do I kill it? With a silver bullet, or a silver arrow, or a stick with a silver end."
Yeah, something silver related. I think that was specifically done for that movie. But once again, that's werewolves. Right now, Jeremy, we are talking about vampires in a shed, and we've lost the shed. The shed ran off, guys. The shed is gone.
The shed crumbled underneath the weight of this movie like it was on the poorly built foundation it looked like it was built upon.
Yeah, this shed looked like... I mean, I'm not saying that the shed was garbage, because it's supposed to look like an old, rundown shed, but that shed didn't even have a proper floor. It was just dirt.
Here's another good one for you. That whole scene with Marble, where... he had the gun. You know how many times this dude could have ducked into all this grass that surrounds it and not get shot? Because I tell you right now, Dahmer could not aim probably to save his life.
Yeah, he wasn't very good at aiming at all. At least 2 or 3 times, I think he actually tried to shoot Marble and completely missed. And... I mean, that whole scene where he was wanting to feed Marble to the vampire, to the monster, whatever it was, that was the scene that we were talking about where he was waving the gun and pointing it at Stan and telling Stan that, pick a side. Whose side are you on? You're on his side, you're on my side. We're best friends and blah, 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 blah. To an extent, I can see where Dahmer's coming from, because, apparently Marvel and his 2 other bully friends just drive around in a muscle car and beat up Dahmer and Stan, and they bully them pretty much, and
all their flannel wearing glory.
Everyone in this movie wore flannel. Where did this movie even take place? Did it say?
I don't think it did.
I don't think it did. It had to be in some sort of small farming community. Because that shed, that area, looked like it belonged in like Indiana or something. But, ow. My cord's tangling up. But yeah, I mean, to an extent, it's like, you guys beat me up every day. I mean, he even said like, just yesterday, you 3 rolled up on me and beat me up.
Yep.
And now you're saying, "Oh, we're just messing around. We're just messing around." Ain't gonna happen, bro. So on that stance, I can see where Dahmer was really just kind of having it. He was like, "I'm done being bullied," and that's the nasty side of being bullied, is that sometimes you snap, but waving a gun all up at Stan and telling him what to do and whatnot, was just, it's like, dude, this is like your best friend, all right, and he's trying to prevent you from killing another person. But didn't think it really mattered. Half the police force dead, which was that was a joke, because there was only 2 police officers in this entire movie, and one of them had her arm ripped off.
Yeah, like that was funny. Because, like, Marble gets over to the shed door. He's like, "Is that an arm?" Oh God, is that an arm?
Yeah, everyone was. Yeah, everyone in this movie was a little weird, a little bit. But all in all, like I said, the acting wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. There, it just seemed like there were some portions of it that might have just been missing. I don't know. Maybe we're supposed to see kind of everything from Stan's point of view.
Possibly.
I mean, because really, now that I think about it, you don't really have a scene without Stan in it. Stan is in like every scene. You never see like a scene where it's just Dahmer and Roxy or Dahmer and Marble. If you do have a scene where it was like that scene where Dahmer gets beat up, Stan was there first. He was in the scene, and then he just happened to have walked away from the scene, and then Dahmer gets beat up. But Stan always seemed like he was in the scene. Now, Jeremy, let's talk about the most obvious elephant in the room, which is that giant segment of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What? What was that? What was that?
Oh my God. That was probably one of the greatest things I'd ever seen in ever. I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's a great movie. I thoroughly enjoy that movie all the time. Like, it's so much fun to watch. But what I loved about the scene was it had this intense music when he's hoofing it back home.
Yeah, it's like
Intense music. And then when they switch to the sheriff, it's like this 60s oldies country music just playing.
Yeah, it's whatever she had on the radio, like murder, bird, 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 and then it cuts right back in. And then he'll run in the background, and they will still have the country music playing that she's listening to, but you'll be like, it's like, what is going on here? And somehow he still made it there after she did, even though he had been on her almost the entire time. There's like scenes you could see him crossing the street behind the truck itself.
That man's got some stamina.
And yeah, he was hustling, but still couldn't save the sheriff.
And that was after he got in the fight at school.
Yeah, oh, that wasn't even a fight, Jeremy. That was a one-sided beating. He just like sucker punched Marble and then just, I thought that was like a dream sequence for a second there, but he just laid into him a couple times.
Well, speaking of dream sequences, we went from a dream to another dream inside of a dream.
Yeah, we went Inception on that one.
Good night.
He had the dream with the, let's see here, it was Roxy, and then she turned into a vampire and bit him, and then he woke up, and the vampire was under his bed or something like that.
Yeah.
He grabbed it from under the bed or something. Then he woke up again, and he had a knife in the bed with him. I don't know how you sleep without, cutting yourself, especially holding on to a knife. But
well, so let's look at it, Jason. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give this movie?
I'm gonna give this movie. I'm gonna give this movie a 7. Okay. It's like a default number for me, but I give it a 7 because, like I said, I like the concept of the vampire in the shed and how he's just trying to get rid of it. It's like it killed his grandpa, it killed his grandpa's dog. He's just trying to find a way to kill it, essentially. And then when his friend finds out about it, he wants to use it as a weapon. I do kind of like the little fight at the end of the movie inside the house. It was kind of an interesting kind of house raid, even though it wasn't that thrilling.
Shotgun blast through particle board and granite.
Yeah, I got a double kill on that one. But I kind of like the idea where you get like the prep work where they're prepping up and stuff like that and ready to take on the vampire. And
That was cool.
uh, you know, there are things in this movie that do really work. Like I said, the characters for the most part are likable to an extent. I mean, I like Stan. Roxy was okay. Dahmer had a nice little flip. It would have been better if they had actually built him as a character, but I can understand why that flip happened. I can't understand the vampire part though because they never really ever explain that. But Marble was just kind of your typical bully who, for some reason, there's like 6 people at that entire school, and little bits here, a little bit there that really do stand out. But I do have to deduct some points because, like I said, there's segments in this that could really work if they just did something with it. Like I said, the Dahmer turning into a vampire, you just missed the whole thing. Like I said, maybe it's a Stan's point of view and he was knocked out during that whole thing, so you don't get to see that. But the movie would have worked a little better if that had happened. And apparently it has to be direct sunlight now that I'm thinking about it because there are several segments where the vampire has light on it,
Yep.
but I think it has to be actual direct sunlight because, if it's like a reflection kind of light coming in from somewhere and it's bouncing off of something or, lighting up something that shines on him, it doesn't really work on him. It has to be direct. But little things here there that really kind of deduct points. But this isn't a movie that's so broken that I'm going to be like, well, don't ever want to watch that again. It's not Vacancy 2. But
Jason Goes to Hell.
Okay, look. Here's the thing with Jason Goes to Hell, Jeremy. It's a terrible movie. It's a terrible, terrible movie. But I will still watch it if we do a marathon.
That's true.
Vacancy 2 will never be watched again.
So
I don't care if I'm doing a Vacancy marathon. I will watch Vacancy, and then I'll watch Vacancy again. But yeah, I'll go back and rewatch this movie again because it does have some fun little moments to it, and like I said, I like the idea that the vampire is in the shed and not like in a house or something like that. But
hello,
otherwise,
Buck Hunter. Hope you're doing well.
Well, he's a little late there with the hello. I mean, we're already 48 minutes in, bro. Good night.
I give it a 7 as well. I agree with you. The parts that work really do work. I mean, but some of the parts that didn't work for me, I know I didn't mention this one. Like when the sheriff got to the shed when he was chasing her, like she went from being this nice sheriff, like trying to help him, to this, get on the ground. You don't have any rats to bark orders at me.
Yeah, she kind of came at him with like.
She came at him with some serious aggression, and I don't feel like the way they put the character together throughout the movie was warranted for that character at the time.
Yeah, because at the beginning when he bumps their car or whatever, and that deputy comes out and starts chewing on him, she's like, hey, he just had a rough time. Just, cut him a little slack. And there was the segment where she was looking for the grandfather, and there may have been like a thought of like some sort of domestic thing going on, because she sees the cane on the ground. Maybe she's thinking that maybe he's harmed him in some form or fashion. But the right there at the end where she's literally pointing a gun at him, first of all, you don't really have any proof. All you know is that there's something in the shed. She thinks the grandfather's in the shed, and he's like, it's not my grandfather. And she's just like pointing a gun, like, get on the ground, I will shoot you. Like, you want some proof first before you just start shooting? It could have been a crazy hobo in there.
Well, I think it's time for our favorite part of the night. At least it's mine.
Oh boy, Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter.
Oh yeah. So, anybody want to take a guess at what it got so far?
Critic wise, I'm gonna go with like 48.
48. I'll give them a couple minutes to. Ravenfire. You
Yes.
misspelled tomato.
No, Jeremy. Jeremy, it's the tomato meter. I like that better. That's gonna be my new nickname, Tomato.
She gives it a 64. Anybody else?
What'd I say? 48?
You gave it a 48.
Yeah, this is a horror movie, and it's
59.
It's a 59. Okay.
It's a splat too.
It's a splat. Yeah, I think when I got on here to look up some stuff for the shed, which every time I typed in the shed, it either gave me a barbecue shack or so I think where was it?
So some of the top critics were like, "There's nothing that to make your hair stand on end in the shed because it's not convincing. The teen angst isn't explored nearly enough, making it hard to root for the young lads. But some of the bloodthirsty special effects are impressive."
I don't know about the special effects. I mean, a couple of neck bites and an arm rip off. That's about it.
I think the most frustrating thing about the shed is that the characters make incredibly stupid decisions throughout the film, and this makes it hard to root for them. While there's plenty of potential here, it all feels wasted.
Yeah, I mean, like this rating thing they have on here, it's like 2.2 out of 5 stars with 11 ratings. IMDb gave it a 4.8 out of 10. So I knew it wasn't like gonna be like the best movies. It wasn't gonna be this big thing, but that's my problem. As I realize,
Well, Ravenfire said it wasn't scary or nerve-wracking. Nothing. Well, Ravenfire, just wait until you see next week's movie.
oh, see, and here's the funny thing is, the way we do these movies. Oh wait, Jeremy, you got to do the
Audience score?
audience score real quick.
Yes. Audience gave it. Do you agree with the tomato meter, Jason?
Do I agree as a 58?
59.
59? Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I mean, critic-wise, like I said, there's a lot of problems with this movie. But, you know, that's what critics look at. They don't go, oh, this movie is, you know, got some problems, but this is really good, you know, type of thing. It's always about technicality, and there's a lot of technical things wrong with this movie. But
Well, the audience gave it a 37.
what the audiences? You guys are supposed to be better than the critics. You're supposed to just love everything.
There are no featured audience reviews for this shed at this time.
Wow, that's horrible, guys. Audiences, I'm disappointed in you.
Look, it could be like Vacancy 2, where 54 people gave it a 5-star rating.
Okay, all the people who watched Vacancy 2 need to come over and watch this movie and boost it up a little bit.
All 54 of you or whatever.
This movie needs a little bit of love.
Because this one has, out of 10 stars, 108 voted it 10 out of 10. 545 are 5 out of 10. So
people are seeing this as kind of a mediocre movie, which is, you know, I'd agree that it's kind of a middle of the road movie. You know, it's not
I agree.
anything great. I mean, default wise, this movie is clearly like maybe a 5 or a 6. But there are aspects I like about it. There's, you know, interesting elements that I do really think could work better, but that's probably why it gets a 7 from me, because it's just a little bit more interesting than a typical vampire flick.
I was gonna say, like I said, what it utilizes, it works. It's nothing spectacular. It's nothing that's gonna win Oscars or anything like that. But it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. It's fun. At the end of the day, it's just fun. But like I said, next week's.
Okay, so the way this works is that we usually set up a schedule. Kind of. We're very bad at scheduling, but we know that each one of us will get a solo movie and then a series. And you could do them in any order you want. You want to do a series first or the solo, it don't matter. The thing is Jeremy sets all this stuff up. He sets all the technical stuff up, the backgrounds, the audios, the trailers, all that stuff. So when I tell him, I'm like, hey, Jeremy, this is what we're going to do, he gets to set it up. So he already knows. I'm pretty sure Jeremy may have mentioned it to me this time, what this movie might be. But as of right now, I'm completely in the dark. So this is going to be interesting to, I'm going to tell Jeremy, never tell me what we're doing. I have to kind of tell him because he has to set it up. But
It was a tough decision between the movie I chose, and another one that I was actually, I thought about doing it because, and I'll tell you what it is later, Jason, what I thought about doing, but I chose this one instead to kind of change it up a little bit again to keep it fresh. But with that being said, our time is running out. So we will see y'all next week. Same campfire, same time. We just won't be doing it next to a shed.
no, it won't be a shed this time.
Do you have anything else, Jason, before we slide on over to the trailer?
No, Jeremy. No. I don't have anything. But yeah, this was actually a very interesting evening. This is what makes it fun, guys. This is what makes it fun for all of us. When this started off, it was let us, we'll watch a movie, we'll talk about said movie, and doing that for Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. You kind of go, let's emphasize on some of the fan usage. Let the fans come in here and our audience come in here and have a chat. And that is what happened today. That is what happened in this episode, is that we actually had a conversation. And it doesn't always have to be about the movie. So if anyone comes in here and they're like, oh my God, they're not talking about the movie, they're not, it's okay, guys, it's okay. Sometimes we watch a movie and we can discuss it in the first 20 minutes and it could be done.
Vacancy 2.
Then you just run off on a tangent that's kind of similar, but but today was this episode was about vampires and about the lore of how they can get in your house, and clearly it has to be an owner related thing. But without further ado, thank you all for being here, participating, and for all the people out there who listen to it on Spotify, YouTube, whatever else you get through streaming services, wherever you're else listening. Thank you. You guys make this happen. We enjoy getting on here, and doing this for you guys. So, without further ado, Jeremy, you may present your movie.
All right, everyone, have a good night, and here we go.
Patrick had a vague feeling something was about to happen. Something in the breeze of twilight had whispered, "It's going to happen tonight."
You just passing through?
No, we're moving here into Aunt Clarice's house.
Okay, what's the story about?
Some guy's been breaking into people's homes, murdering the parents, and sparing the daughters. He stays in the house with her, along with the parents' dead bodies. I like to write stories.
Incident in a Ghostland is your most personal book so far.
Your sales are through the roof. They adore you.
Hello?
Please, you have to come back.
Vera?
They never should have stayed in that house. Capacity to create your own world.
I guess the question is, why write this book?
To keep from going insane. reliving that night over and over.
Are you gonna let me die alone?
I never should have stayed in that house.
Nobody's here. No one is here, Vera. I know what you want from your sister.
They broke me, and now they're playing with you. Do you understand now, Beth?
What did you do to me?
Except what happened.
Tell me what you did!
Stop running away!
No!